In the Border Princes, fortunes rise and fall as quickly as the sun, and the only constants are change and challenge. It is a land not for the faint of heart, but for those with the courage to face its trials. It is a region where the dreams and ambitions of men clash as fiercely as their swords, a place of fleeting dominions carved from the wilderness by the brave, the desperate, and the cunning. Power shifts are common here, and alliances change, fade, or mutate as quickly as they are formed. In this rugged wilderness, a variety of nascent kingdoms exist, stitched together by adventurers with grand ambitions. Driven by dreams of sovereignty, these individuals often arrive as refugees, escaping political or religious persecution from established and bigger realms like the Empire, Bretonnia, Kislev, Araby, and beyond. Each seeks to plant the seeds of a new realm, transforming the untamed landscape into pockets of civilization that defy the chaotic nature of their surroundings. In this episode, we will explore this fascinating region, some of its places of interest, as well as the powers and factions that make this land as tumultuous as it is. Nestled to the south of the mighty Empire of Man, and far from the structured chivalry of Bretonnia, the Border Princes offer a diversity of fortified towns and fledgling realms, each governed by its own set of ever-changing rules and rulers. The landscape itself is as varied as its inhabitants. Rolling hills give way to dense forests, and rugged mountains frame the horizon. Rivers, vital lifelines in this harsh terrain, snake through the valleys, supporting the scattered townships and providing crucial trade routes. Located east of the Tilian city-states and separated from the peninsula by the Apuchini Mountains, it is bounded by the Black Mountains to the north, the World's Edge Mountains to the east, and the Black Gulf to the south, forming a wide rectangle. The region is rich with untapped potential. The relative lawlessness and constant flux create opportunities for ambitious individuals to rise to power quickly. Adventurers, mercenaries and traders can find fortunes here if they have the mettle to seize them. As we know, the Border Princess is composed of numerous petty kingdoms, principalities and fiefdoms, each ruled by different princes or self-declared rulers. This fragmentation allows for a high degree of autonomy, but also results in no common law to adhere to, varying quality of infrastructure, such as roads and bridges, and no centralized form of government to act as mediator between two parties. As a result, borders are always shifting and farmlands and other resources are always a subject of contention between the powers that intend to rule the place. Yet for all its promise of freedom and opportunity, the Border Princes is a land where danger lurks behind every tree and under every stone. The air is often filled with the clash of steel, the cries of warfare, as roving bands of orcs and marauding beastmen bray herds descend upon the unwary. These monstrous incursions are a grim reminder that here, survival is earned by sword and shield, and peace is but a fleeting dream. The terrain of the Border Princes presents a harsh and unforgiving environment. The woodlands are thick with short thorny trees which frequently intertwine to create dense and often impenetrable thickets. Even in the valleys where the rivers meander, the soil remains stubbornly poor and the fertile lands are few and far between. Every day is a struggle, every night a vigil. Yet despite, or perhaps because of, the relentless hardships, a vibrant community thrives. In taverns and market squares, tales of daring and dreams are traded as freely as the wares. Songs of heroic deeds and tragic falls are often heard, inspiring the next generation of adventurers that will surely try to mark their names in no man's land. The Border Princes is a region defined by its perpetual instability and the relentless shifting of power among its diverse inhabitants. Here a mosaic of human warlords, ambitious nobles, and exiled knights vie for control alongside non-human forces such as orcs, beastmen, and the sinister machinations of undead vampire counts amongst others. Many are the powers and factions that come into play when assessing the political, economic, and military stability of the region. Let's dive into some of these actors and examine what roles they play in these lands. Mercenaries, drawn by the lure of gold and glory, patrol the roads and guard the burgeoning settlements of the Border Princes. The region is a fertile ground for those companies due to its constant state of warfare and political instability. These bands range from disciplined professional soldiers to more ragtag groups of adventurers. Among the notable ones is the Blackfire Band, known for their ruthlessness and effectiveness, often hired by various princes to defend territories or expand their dominions. Another prominent group is the Swords of Sigmar, largely composed of exiles from the Empire who bring a higher level of military training and religious fervour to their endeavours. Additionally, the Grimblade Reavers, a notorious band, are sought after for their expertise in guiding, navigating, and surviving the region's harsher terrains. Each mercenary company has its reputation, specialties, allegiances, and of course their own cost for hiring, contributing dynamically to the ever-shifting alliances and conflicts within the Border Princes. Amidst this chaos, a diverse populace ekes out a living. Hardy peasants, many of whom fled the oppression of distant lands, work the soil. They form the backbone of the rural communities, eking out a living from the harsh and often unforgiving land. Many are former serfs and lowborn from more established realms, seeking autonomy and a chance to own land in this lawless frontier. They engage in farming, albeit with poor yields due to the rugged terrain and constant threat of raids. Others turn to artisan trades, supplying local needs for tools, garments, and basic necessities. The constant flux of the region means these peasants are not only resilient, but also versatile, often having to defend their homesteads and participate in local militias. The nobles and princes of the region are a diverse and ambitious lot, often disgraced or exiled from far-off courts from the world's seek redemption or revenge, their banners flying once more over hastily erected fortresses. These rulers are constantly engaged in defending their territories, negotiating alliances, and waging wars to expand their domains. Many come from different cultural backgrounds, bringing varied governance styles and traditions, which adds yet another layer of complexity of political life in the region. The life of a noble in the Border Princes is one of perpetual vigilance and strategic planning, as the balance of power shifts rapidly, and today's ally may be tomorrow's enemy. Their rule is often characterized by a pragmatic blend of diplomacy and military might, necessary to maintain their hold on power in a land where authority is always contested. In the Border Princes, Bretonnian knights often find themselves far from the chivalric and feudal culture of their homeland. These knights, typically younger sons without inheritance or those seeking redemption or glory, venture into this wild frontier to prove their valor or expand their fortunes. They bring with them the ideals of chivalry and martial prowess, setting themselves apart with their impressive combat skills and often strict moral codes. In a land rife with mercenaries and cutthroats, Bretonnian knights strive to uphold justice and protect the weak, making them both respected and sometimes naive figures in the eyes of more cynical local warlords. Their presence often influences the local politics and military tactics, as they form knightly orders or serve as elite bodyguards and commanders in the armies of the border princes. Orcs and goblins are ubiquitous and disruptive forces within the region, thriving in the land's disorder and constant conflict. These greenskins are drawn to the area by the perpetual warfare, seeing it as an endless opportunity for battle and plunder. Orc warbands led by the biggest and toughest among them roam the landscape, raiding settlements and clashing with any who cross their path. Together they form ragtag armies that are as likely to fight amongst themselves as against external enemies. These green-skinned forces are a major threat to the stability of any would-be ruler's domain within the border princes, often forcing unlikely alliances among human factions, just to be able to contain them. Their presence adds a wildcard element to the political and military strategies in the region, making them a constant concern for all inhabitants. Ogres in the border princes are often sought after for their brute strength and formidable presence on the battlefield. Due to their immense size and appetite for combat and meat, they are frequently hired as mercenaries, offering their services to the highest bidder in exchange for copious amounts of food and coin. These massive beings can turn the tide of a battle, serving as shock troops or heavy infantry that can break enemy lines with sheer force. In addition to individual ogres serving in various armies, there are also full ogre mercenary companies that roam the region, operating as highly effective, if expensive, military units. Their presence is a double-edged sword. While incredibly powerful allies, their need for constant supply of food constrain the resources of their employers. Nevertheless, their ability to instill fear and cause destruction makes them invaluable in the tumultuous and war-torn environment of the border princes. Pirates and raiders have always been a persistent threat here, exploiting the region's fractured political landscape and numerous trade routes. These marauders are drawn to the area's constant turmoil, finding ample opportunity to attack poorly defended settlements, ambush caravans, and plunder isolated communities. These groups vary widely in their composition and tactics, ranging from organized bands of sea raiders with fast ships to ragtag groups of land brigands on horseback. Despite their disruptive nature, some princes and warlords have been known to employ these raiders as mercenaries, using them as a swift and ruthless force to expand their territories or settle scores with competing powers. The dwarves that make their living in the border princes are highly valued for their craftsmanship and combat prowess. Many are exiles or adventurers from nearby mountain strongholds, bringing expertise in mining, engineering, and metalwork that makes them critical in fortifying settlements and producing superior weaponry and armor. These skills make dwarves indispensable for enhancing local defenses and infrastructure. In addition to their technical abilities, dwarves form disciplined mercenary units, renowned for their toughness in battle, often hired to strengthen the military forces of various princes and warlords. Their reliability and loyalty, once secured, make them respected and sought after allies. Organized in war bands known as Bray Herds, beastmen are led by the strongest, most vicious among them, typically a beast lord. These groups are highly mobile and notoriously difficult to track, making them constant threat that can strike unexpectedly. As creatures of chaos, they embody the primal and savage aspects of nature, often launching brutal raids on settlements and clashing with any who dare venture too deeply into their dark, hidden enclaves. These half-men, half-beast creatures are not just random marauders. They're driven by a deep-seated hatred for civilization and the structures of man, and as such, they take particular pride in trampling to the ground any rising form of power that takes hold in the Border Princes. The Tomb Kings, while more commonly associated with the deserts of Nehekara, occasionally extend their influence into regions such as the Border Princes due to their relentless pursuit of relics and restoration of their ancient rule. These undead monarchs and their armies are driven by the wills of their long-deceased kings, who seek to reclaim lost artifacts and assert their domination. In the Border Princes, encounters with the Tomb Kings are rare, but profoundly impactful when they occur. These undead forces are methodical and unyielding, often emerging from ancient burial sites or following the trail of stolen treasures that have found their way into the region. Many masters of the undead, hailing from Sylvania, the Vampire Coast, or other dark corners of the world, are attracted to the Border Princes by the constant conflict and abundance of isolated communities, which provide ample opportunities for the expansion of their undead legions. Vampire counts often infiltrate local aristocracy or establish hidden lairs within the region, using their supernatural powers and cunning to manipulate local politics and bend the will of lesser beings. Their presence is marked by a gradual increase in mysterious disappearances, nocturnal activities, and the corruption of local wildlife and flora, which gradually reveal the infiltration of these undead creatures. With so many constantly moving pieces in the Border Princes, power is never held for long. Leadership changes hands with the rapidity of changing winds, as victories are often short-lived and territories frequently contested. This makes the region a hotbed for adventure and treachery, where only the most cunning or brutal can hope to thrive. The ever-present threat of invasion, betrayal, and usurpation means that no ruler can rest easy on their throne, and no day is without its dangers. In such a dynamic environment, every corner of this land holds its own secrets and strategic value. Now let's shift our focus to the very stages upon which these dramas and battles unfold. One of these is the Black Gulf itself. Its strategic position makes it an area of interest for trade and military activity. It is a vital trade route for the cities of the Border Princes along its shores, and a critical location for powers that wish to control the southern trade routes of the Old World. It is a treacherous sea known for its formidable navigational challenges. The deadly currents and vicious tides beneath its dark waters make passage perilous. While vessels of other races can indeed traverse these waters, it requires exceptional seamanship to avoid disaster. In contrast, the dwarves sail these straits with remarkable consistency, thanks to their iron-hulled ships and steam-driven paddles, which are largely resistant to the sea's destructive forces. Stories of ghost ships, sea monsters, and ancient curses are common among sailors and port towns along its coast. Skaven Blight is the foul and corrupted capital of the Skaven race. It lies in the blighted marshes near Maragliano. It is the largest and most densely populated city in the world. It is a sprawling metropolis of endless caverns teeming with rat-men, a multi-layered undercity of twisting corridors and nightmarish squalor on an unimaginable scale. The subterranean city is a source of constant threat to the Border Princes, as Skaven warlords frequently dispatch armies and agents to infiltrate, undermine, and lay waste to the human settlements nearby. The very presence of Skaven blight casts a shadow of paranoia and danger over the nearby lands, where local rulers must remain ever vigilant against the threat of Skaven sabotage and invasion, complicating the already tumultuous politics and survival struggles of the region. Also known as Gate to the Sea, Barrack is a dwarf seaport, unique in that it provides the only major sea access for the dwarfs of the World's Edge Mountains. Its strategic location makes it a vital trade hub not just for dwarfs, but also for the human populations of the Border Princes. The city is heavily fortified and is known for its massive sea gate that protects it from naval attacks.
The markets of this place are exquisite, for the goods of many lands pass through them regularly. I dare say one can find rare items of interest in the shadowed corners that would never elsewhere see the light of day.
The Blood River earned its name as a result of many battles fought along its banks. It is a significant geographical feature that many warlords and princes have sought to control due to its strategic importance for trade and defense. Blackfire Pass is a crucial geographic and strategic choke point, located primarily in the Empire, but with critical implications for the Border Princes, due to its positioning on the eastern approaches. This narrow pass through the Black Mountains serves as one of the primary routes for trade and military movements between the Empire and the lands to the east, including the Border Princes.
Men of Astalia, or the Empire, will confidently assure you that there are no cities in the region, and that even the grandest of the so-called princes are merely upstart brigands. Those whose notion of a city is formed by knowledge of Magritta or Altdorf are justified in saying that no such place exists in the Border Princes. But there are walled towns in the region, much greater in size than Argigil, which the people, who know no better, think of as great cities. Such places are sometimes little more than huge fortresses, to which the entire population of a region might retire in time of invasion. Each one has its own prince, and each one has its own tiny empire. For even such small cities as these must rely on the produce of a legion of farmers.
As we've seen, the Border Princes is a realm where allegiances are as unstable as the ground during an earthquake. If you're intrigued by the power struggles and dynamic interactions we've witnessed today, you'll probably want to watch our recent lore overview of Carrick 8 Peaks, a zone fiercely contested by three of the most stubborn and savage factions. The Dwarves, Skaven, and Greenskins each claim the stronghold as their own, leading to a relentless and bloody battle for supremacy in its dark and echoing halls. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want more, check out the links in the description. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.